This video is going to demonstrate to teachers how to send materials from their own account into their students' accounts. So I'm going to log in as you would as as a teacher. You would log into your own account. You would go to the material you would want your students to grab. Now I'm going to try to point out and make a suggestion. If you wanted to send them, let's say, Parshas Shemos, and you wanted, in theory, to start off with translations, I would not break it up and send them piecemeal certain parts of Shemos, send them this, and then maybe in a week later send them this, because that will really clutter their account. It won't look unified, and it really won't look like what you have in your account either. What I suggest that you do is you send them the entire Parsha Shemos that houses all these different collections. And the truth of the matter is, if you know you're not using one of these collections at all you need to do before you send it to them is hover over one of them, right click, and delete. Or if you wanted to be more specific, let's say you wanted to go into the Sharashim, and in each Sharashim collection, let's go to Perek Aleph, you decided that you're not going to be doing Mila B'Chumash as an example, you could just simply right click and delete that before you send it to your students. So that's something that you can do before you send to your students, but I would really advise that you send the entire package as much as possible. So whether it be by Parsha or in Navi by Perek, break it up that way so that it's just a little cleaner for your students in their own accounts. Something else I wanted to point out to you before you send to students, and this is something sort of technical when it comes to being able to add more material in your account. When we talk about making changes in your account as the teacher, and those changes being updated in your students' accounts, that is specific to something within a lesson. So if I went into Perek Beis as an example, and I moved parts of the lesson around, or I went into a pasuk and I edited that pasuk, all those things would be updated in the students' accounts. But if I went ahead in my own account, after I sent this to my students, where it goes Perek Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, and I decided to add a lesson. So I go ahead and I decide to add a lesson, like I'm going to call it A as an example. And I want to put material in that lesson, the students would not get this lesson in their account in this collection called Parshas Shemos Translations. That is because we are now adding something new. When we talk about updates for the student, it's only within the lesson themselves. So you have to be a little bit strategic that if you feel like you're going to be adding more material, what you can do is, in theory, is you can create lessons or create collections, which is something else I'm going to show you in another video, and just keep them sort of as placeholders. You don't have to put anything in those lessons. You can even change the name of the lesson afterwards. But as long as you have those lessons in place, or those collections with those lessons inside, then you can update those lessons by putting in new material. But you cannot create a new lesson or create a new collection in your account and assume that because I have a collection that I sent to my students called Parsha Shemos that has these 5 unique interactivities, and now I decide I wanted to add either a new lesson or a new collection, that the students will see that as well in their Parsha Shemos collection. They will not see it. So that's just something very important for students to be, for teachers, that is, to be aware of before they send any material to their students. So as we talked about before, sending something in sort of a bigger, larger collection makes more sense because it's just cleaner that way for the students. The way you need to send materials to your students is by doing this. So let's say I want to send them the entire Parsha Shemos, that again houses all this material inside. What I would do is, I take my mouse, I hover over the collection. As you see here, there's a yellow, it sort of highlights in yellow. I right click on my computer, and I go down to where it says send to students, and then I left click. My list comes up. Now, if I have more than one class, I'll have more than one class where I can click on the class and the list of students would appear. In this particular case, I only have one class set up. Again, what I do is I left click I hover over the class and I left click. It drops down the students. And again, whatever students you had given us that is in that particular class will appear here with their usernames, not their passwords, just their usernames. And I can decide as the teacher if I want to send it to everybody, and that would be by clicking on the first little checkbox there. That would check everybody off. Or in theory, I can send it to specific students. When we talk about differentiated instruction and taking material that you have in your own account as the teacher and maybe modifying it a couple of different ways, which again is another video that you can watch, you can in theory then send the different types of material to different students without other students knowing. That really, really enables differentiated instruction. But for the purposes of this video, I will show you how to send it to everybody at the same time. So what you would do is, again, you click on the top. It's telling me over here I'm sending them Parshas Shmos. It's just confirming what that is. And then I would go ahead and I would click on Send to Students. Now, this is a perfect example because what's happening over here is it showed me the green confirms that it sent it to that student and it sent it to that student. It's telling me 2 out of 3 successfully were sent. Usually and typically when you send to all your students, all the student names should turn green. At that point you know, and then you confirm it on top, 3 of 3 successful, you know that it was sent into every single student's home account. When this pops up, either where it says parent is already full, or it says error, for whatever reason, it was not able to send it to that student. In this case, where it says parent is already full, what it's telling you is that in the student's account, in their homepage, there are only 16 slots to be able to put material in. As you see over here, this is 1, 2, 3, and then it would just go 4 across. So 4 across and 4 down. In this particular student, that's already filled up. So I have no room to send more material. So this is just letting you know that, either you can go into the student's account and delete material to free up space, or you can ask the student to do it. However you want to go about doing it, I would probably suggest you as the teacher just logging into the student's accounts, clearing up some space that they are not using anymore, material that they've done a month ago or 2 months ago, getting rid of it, and then being able to send it back to the student. But what would happen here is that you're able now to see that this student got sent to successfully and this one, because they're green, it's telling me 2 out of 3 are successful. I press the close button. What I would do is I would go into that student's account, clear the material, and then I would just simply go back to send to students, and I would open it up, and I would make sure just to send it to that particular student. Once it got cleared up, once I went into that student's account, and I would send to student again. If the error button comes up for whatever reason, and it's red on any particular student, what I suggest that you, the teacher, does is log out of your account, wait a couple of minutes, log back in, go to the material that you wanted to send, right click, same idea, send to students, click on the student or students that it didn't send to specifically, and then just press send to students. And if they turn green, then you know that now they have that material. I will also tell all the teachers, and this is something that is really being worked on and something that we don't have full control of on our end, but I would tell you that sending to students, the best time to send material to students, we have found, especially with the overload of teachers and students on the program, which is great, is really early in the morning. I would say anywhere between 5 and let's say 9 or maybe 10 o'clock in the morning. Usually when it gets a little bit later and into the afternoon, when there's more people using it, trying to send to students will error out. It will just error all the students out. So I suggest sending to students early in the morning, and hopefully they'll all turn green. And if they don't, you'll read the message. If it says parent full, you'll go in and you'll just remove material out of the student's home account. And if it just says error, you'll log out of your account. You'll log back in a few minutes later, and you will then try just sending specifically to those students. Do not resend to everybody again, because then every student will get it twice. Just to the students that it errored out for, maybe you can write it down so you remember which students you need to resend it to, and then you can send it to those students. That is how you send material out of your account into your students' accounts. It is very important to remember as the teacher, before you send the material out to your students, that you make sure that every collection within the larger collection that you're sending, all the lessons are cloned, as we talked about in another video. And that means that the black line is not there anymore. In this particular case, I only did that for translation. I did not do it for anywhere else, and this would be a problem if you sent this whole collection to your students, because you need to make sure that you've cloned every single lesson in every single collection before you go ahead and you send that entire collection to your students. So again, just to be clear, before you send to students, open up the collection, open up every collection within the collection, make sure that all your lessons are cloned. At that point, you can send to students, again, preferably earlier in the morning. You can always adjust, modify, add within a lesson itself. If you go ahead and you want to add something else, that will not appear in the students' accounts, although you can send that to the students afterwards, but it will not appear sort of in this overall collection of Parshas Shmos, because it's a new element that you've now created once you've already sent material off to students.